So in this explainer, we're going to explore a pretty fascinating question. In the middle of our incredibly loud modern lives, how do you actually hear a quiet divine whisper? It's really a journey from all that noise to a place of stillness, and it starts in a simple moment most of us just overlook. So, where do we even begin? Well, our source material kicks things off with this really powerful idea. It suggests that right before a really profound message comes through, there's this particular kind of quiet. But here's the thing, most of us, we completely miss it. We fill that quiet up with scrolling on our phones, with worry, with that endless loop of our own thoughts. You have to wonder, right? What would happen if we learned not to? Okay, so let's dive into the main challenge here, the incredible amount of noise. And I'm talking both outside of us and inside our own heads. All of it creates this kind of spiritual static, and it just drowns out a voice that, as we're about to find out, doesn't really shout to be heard. So how do we start? How do we even begin to tune in? The source gives us this fantastic story as a guide. It's about a young boy named Samuel who's sleeping in a quiet temple, and he hears a call that he just doesn't recognize. His journey, well, it pretty much becomes a blueprint for our own. And this right here is maybe the most comforting part of the whole process. There's no test, no judgment if you don't get it right the first time. The voice is described as being incredibly patient, and persistent. It's willing to keep calling until we finally recognize it. What's so cool about this story is that it lays out this clear, repeatable pattern for learning. First, a call comes. Then, we mistake it for something familiar. Of course we do. But it doesn't give up. It persists. And finally, someone teaches us or we learn a new way to respond. It's all about trial, error, and a little bit of guidance. And all of that leads to this huge shift, which is really captured in one simple phrase. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. You see, Samuel goes from running around all confused to just sitting still, ready to receive. He literally adopts a posture of listening, and that simple change in orientation makes all the difference. All right, so let's build on that idea, because it's not just about the how-to of listening. The source says there's a certain attitude that's absolutely essential, and it uses the story of two sisters, Mary and Martha, to show us two completely different ways of being present. This is such a powerful contrast, isn't it? You've got Martha, who shows her love through all this frantic activity, through doing for someone. But then there's Mary, and she chooses a totally different path. Just simple, focused attention, being with. This suggests that real listening isn't about adding another task to your to-do list. It's about choosing a whole different state of mind. And here's the validation of that choice. The source really emphasizes that in a life just packed with distractions and duties, choosing that quiet, attentive presence, that's the one thing we actually need. That's the better part. Okay, so we're supposed to be listening, but what are we actually listening for? To help manage our expectations, the source brings up another story, this time about the prophet Elijah. He was also searching for this voice, and he was in the middle of a serious crisis. I mean, think about this sequence for a second. Elijah goes through all these huge, dramatic, powerful events, a wind so strong it shatters rocks, an earthquake, a massive fire. But the divine presence? It wasn't in any of that. It was in what came after all the noise. A gentle whisper, a still, small voice. And this quote it nails why it's a whisper. Thunder is impersonal, it's far away, but a whisper, wow. A whisper requires you to be close. It demands intimacy. It's a totally different kind of communication, one that's designed to be personal, to be near. So to keep this from being some vague, abstract idea, the source gives us these really concrete examples. It's probably not about hearing an actual audible voice. It's more about recognizing these small, quiet movements inside of us, like a little nudge in your chest, a sentence that just keeps replaying in your mind, or a sudden, unexpected wave of tenderness, or even a sense of peace that shows up for no reason at all. Now, this is absolutely crucial. This is not a passive process. We're not just some satellite dish waiting to receive a signal from space. The source makes it really clear that this is a two-way conversation, and our own voice is a vital part of it. This is the exact question that Jesus asks a blind man named Bartimaeus, and now the source asks it of us. It's such a powerful question because, if we're honest, a lot of us have stopped even admitting what we really want, maybe because we're afraid of being disappointed. This question is an invitation to finally name our deepest desires. But what happens when we mess up? I mean, really, truly mess up. The story of Peter is held up as the ultimate example of failure and restoration. He publicly denies his friend 3 times, but later, he's given the chance to affirm his love 3 times. That symmetry is no accident. It's about completely undoing the failure, not just forgiving it. And this just sums it all up, doesn't it? It's the central message of grace in this whole conversation. Drifting away from things? That's normal. It happens. It doesn't disqualify us. What truly qualifies us, the source argues, is the simple act of turning back. So if we actually do this, if we practice this kind of listening, what's the long-term result? What's the payoff? What happens to a life that is consistently pointed toward listening? Well, the source describes it as a slow, deep, and totally transformative harvest. And that brings us to the ultimate goal here. It's not just about hearing, it's about something called surrendered listening. And that means actively giving a voice permission to get in there and reshape the very core of who we are. How you see your career, that difficult relationship, your secret hopes, your deepest fears. This chart is a great way to see the whole journey we've been talking about. Most of us start at surface listening. Things go in one ear and out the other. If we work at it, we can get to curious listening, where we start to really engage. But the final invitation, the deepest level, is to reach that surrendered listening, the kind that changes everything. And this is where we end. After all the stories, all the concepts, it really just boils down to this one simple, profound invitation. It's not a command to be perfect. It's not a demand for some grand gesture. It's just a call for our attention, a quiet request to simply turn our face and listen. You gotta wonder, what might happen if we did?